Hello everybody, Darren here, and welcome back to Satisfactory. Now first off, I've been sick, again. So I am sorry, I don't know why this keeps happening, but there's been another gap in videos, and I'm mostly over it now. It wasn't as bad as last month, when I was just sick again, but just a little head cold. It's pretty much gone now. But not to delay, we're jumping back into our desert playthrough, of course, and it's time to clear up a few things, literally. After building the liquid biofuel factory, we now have about 100,000 liquid biofuel for the jetpack, so getting around should be a lot easier, and we'll utilize the rest in the future for trucks. So next up, it's removing our old starting factory. All the iron and copper is now being removed and bundled into some containers near my starting base, just to keep the materials there so we can build with them, while we work on a brand new iron factory. The plan for this one is making everything we did before, but just in greater volume, and to create heavy modular frames as an end product, something that we don't currently have. We're going to need this for future space elevator parts and for various different buildables, so it's just the natural next step. But as we are still early-ish in the game, I cancelled my plans for a mega iron factory. Trust me, it was so tempting to go ahead with it, but we just don't even have the power to turn something like that on right now, and it would take so long. I just feel like we don't need to do that yet. We'll get there though. Instead, we're just going to be tapping 4 iron nodes fully, with some additional materials being delivered in. I think this is a nice medium-sized factory for now that works with our current power demands and will keep us going comfortably for a while. On reflection, today's video is actually a lot about the planning and building the basics around it. I'm going to be talking a lot about blueprints and why I'm building the way I am. Maybe unnecessarily so, but it means that the next video, which will be coming much sooner than usual, is just going to be very machine heavy. We're going to be placing everything, turning things all on. So I just wanted to preface that a lot of this is the setup that will lead into the main facility part of the next video. Hopefully that means this is the setup, the next is really going to be the big payoff. So without further delay, let's begin. You know, in the mornings, often when I'm brushing my teeth, doing my morning routine as it were, I, walk around the hub, play some games and stuff, and I just noticed, vote for Satisfactory in the Steam Awards. The category is Better with Friends and Most Innovative Gameplay. Never noticed that sign before, but one thing I did notice when I was taking a leak is that this little tracking camera follows you straight in here, and there's no door. So, what's going on there, huh? What is going on there? Anyways, let's get started. So, on the right-hand side of the screen today, we're going to be building an iron complex. Because of our original iron factory that's been removed, we now want to get all of the various iron pieces that we had already, plus some more. So we're going to be starting off with a Blueprint Designer Mark II, because this little Mark I ain't cutting it anymore. We need one that's bigger for the bigger factory that we're going to be building, and a lot more machines that we're going to be placing down. I think the total machine count is going to be around the 230 mark, so quite a lot from where we've been currently in the game. After that, we're going to do some prospecting, which basically means figuring out which iron nodes that we're going to be tapping. We need 4 in total, building the foundations to connect them all together, starting the smelting process, construction, assembly, manufacturing, exports, and roads. Arguably too much for one video, but we'll see if we can manage it. Most certainly not. Hopefully we can get it in 2 though. Right, so tier 5 is actually done, despite it flashing, so we have everything here in tier 6. We're going to be starting with Blueprints Mark II. We need 100 heavy modular frames and 100 computers to do that. Now, normally you'd have to get industrial manufacturing first, and either produce these or maybe unlock them via the awesome shop. If you want to be a little lazy, we're going to do neither. We're just going to go straight into this one, and in order to fulfill everything it needs, thankfully we've gone around and found these components at various hard drive sites. Remember, I've shared my save and I've shown you, broadly speaking, which hard drive sites I've gone to, so you should be able to find them also. But if you just look around, you'll eventually get the same amount of materials. Now, it's not a big deal. You can get the other milestones done with everything I've built in the world already, but it's just nice to get this one out of the way first, so then we can build our big blueprints and get everything ready that we need for this factory. So, of course, in between episodes, I've already gone ahead and done this. So we're going to get rid of that designer and now start with the Blueprint Mark II designer. Rotate it to face the same direction, and I'll just place it roughly where it needs to be. So the Mark II designer, very simply put, instead of a 4x4x4, it's a 5x5x5. That's pretty much all the only difference is. One kind of annoying thing is that you cannot load blueprints that were built in the other designer in there. It says it was made in a designer of a different size, even though it was smaller, and it won't be loaded in. Not really a problem though, because of course if you did want to modify one of your old designs, you can just place it inside a larger designer and then save it out as something new if you're modifying it. Our 4x4x4 designs aren't really ever going to change, I don't think, so everything is just going to be done in here, so I don't need multiple platforms for different designers. This one will be totally fine. Might end up building some poles around it, and when we get a hover pack we can kind of just fly around it as we build. That might be kind of nice too. Now, I've gone ahead and built a huge amount of blueprints. I don't know, I've added like 30 or something more. So one of the interesting ones, I suppose, is a better looking road. It's a bigger road now designed for trucks rather than tractors. I experimented quite a bit with using a 4-lane, a 3-lane, a 2-lane one-way, and a few different other types. And I've saved them all into various different categories for use if we choose to use them, but I think I'll probably just mostly use this standard 3-lane road with a very simple look to it, right? Just some barriers on the side, some painted beams, and some basic walls. So trying to keep it low cost in terms of materials as well. You can do all sorts of fancy things, putting lights on them and putting cables running underneath, leave them hollow. That's all well and good, but I'm trying to just keep the material cost low because we're going to be building a lot of them. Next thing would be having a look at some of the new stackable machines I've got. So in the Constructor's Dynamic category, if you remember from previously... I can't load the old ones, but I can load the new ones. We had a line of machines. Yeah, so let me just show that really quickly. The idea of the dynamic blueprints, where that... if we just find one here... There. Was that the recipe isn't set, but the layout is. However, we can just alternate through them, thus changing the direction of the input-outputs. From left to right, right to left, and the different combinations that they get. The same for assemblers. But now I've also gone ahead and built layers of them. And these ones are going to be working where they can stack on top of each other as well, with another kind of cosmetic floor that we built. That's something I'm going to be using a lot. So we're going to be able to stack these machines nice and high. In the 1.1 update, it looks like we're going to be getting stackable and vertical mergers and splitters. They're already stackable, but vertical. So the belts will be able to split as they go up. That'll be perfect for using stackable machines, which I used to do anyway. But yeah, so having those blueprints, it's just going to work even better now in the future with 1.1. But we're going to build this factory irregardless of that update when it comes out, because I don't know. Alright, so just wanted to touch on that. That is the Blueprint Designer Mark II. There's some other blueprints in there. I'll just talk about them as the episode goes on, of course. And of course, you can find all those blueprints at whatdarrenplays.com/satisfactory, plus the instructions on how to use them. Now, it's going to be a few minutes before we can do some of the other milestones, but we'll just trickle them on in the background. And we have to now look at prospecting. So I've called it prospecting because there are a bunch of iron nodes in the desert. It's actually really difficult to know where to build, and it's something I struggled with for a long time for this episode, wondering exactly where we're going to start. So I'm going to build beams on all of the pure iron deposits, and then we'll have a little bird's eye view of where they all are, and then decide which ones should we use for this factory. Alright, so I've built these big steel poles with a little steel frame foundation on top of it, and it allows us just to get a general idea of how far the pure iron nodes are from us. Of course you can scan, but that's going to show all nodes, and you can use a radar tower as well, but I just wanted to get a visual indication of how far these things are from each other, just so I know how many of them or which closest ones I could use. When I've been scanning in the region for whatever reason... Hello? Hello? Hello. Anyways, when I've been scanning in the region, often it's just showing me 3 of the iron deposits, not like a large amount of the area around me. Don't know why it's doing that, so it's been a little annoying. But something that's awesome is putting down little markers like this and using a mod called Cartograph. Allows me to see where everything is. So I'm going to click this button up here, which is modded into the game, and click this one to show everything on the map. So just to clean this up even a little bit further, I can hide the normal map markers just a little bit, and actually we can hide the regular map markers too. So now we can literally just see where all the buildables that I've placed are. You can see the little tractors following the actual road and see where the factories are. We could hide the truck stations as well to get an even cleaner look, and we can customize this. Excuse me, I'm trying to explain something to people. Anyways, you can even then filter it by every type of foundation or every type of walkway or any type of buildable that's in the game, and then filter it by its height if you just want to see a low down layer or a high up layer. It's awesome. So massive shout out to the mod Cartograph. Another great feature with this mod, doesn't disable achievements, and you can just turn it on and off and it doesn't affect your save in any way, shape or form. So Obviously, as a video creator, this allows me to just very easily show you the placement of everything all the time. So I'm obviously going to use it. So hopefully people don't mind. It's just called Cartograph. And I might make a short or something explaining how to use mods and various other mods. There's one additional one I couldn't help myself but grab at the same time. Let's say we place down a merger. And let's just say I color it, I don't know, gold. Now normally, if I was to copy this and place it down, it would just be a fresh merger. It would look like this. Right? But with a mod called Persistent Paintables, he is loving it. We can place this down, and boom. It copied the color that the original thing I copied had. It is going to save me so much time because I don't use these extra color swatches very often. I rather just use my custom swatch and then copy and paste what I look at. And now that's just going to do the painting for me. Again, it has nothing to do with your save file. It's just a totally vanilla-friendly quality of life mod. So hopefully people are happy with that one too. Alright, so now that we have this buildables mod on, it's quite hard to see because it is really small. But we have a little indication of where each of these 6 nodes are. So there's just a little network of nodes here, a little constellation. Now we need 4 of them. So I would say maybe I'll go with 1 here, there, and there. These 4 together. There is a big rock thing in the way, right? This thing. But we'll just build around that. I don't think it's a big deal. The other option is to just use these 4. But this one is next to another node and stuff, so I'm happy with these 4 here, and we'll do something else with that pure node in the future. So I just thought I would illustrate all of that and just let people know what's going on. Next up is kind of connecting these with foundations, and then we can tear down the other poles as they're a bit of an eyesore a little bit later. Right, the time I was rambling on, our pod has returned. Now we can do industrial manufacturing, so it's just going to be motors. I'll have to get a little bit more modular frames, a lot of cable, and some plastic. Remember, of course, you can always just pull stuff out of your dimensional depot. So because we make 400 plastic per minute and 400 rubber per minute, these ones are going pretty quickly now. And we have our big containers of modular frames and everything else I torn down from our previous factory. So I'll just go grab those and fill this up manually, and then we'll send it off. All right, there we go. Industrial manufacturing ready for launch. Hell yeah. All right, so that's going to be a manufacturer, right? A machine with 4 inputs, so it's pretty much as complicated as things ever get, beyond having, I guess later on you get 2 inputs for liquids and 2 for materials. That can be kind of complicated. Computers, heavy modular frames, modular engine, the next space elevator part, and adaptive control units, the final space elevator part for completing phase 3. After this, we're going to look into getting train technology. Again, we have the parts for all of this. We're a little low on computers, but we can manually force them out now that we have manufacturers. We can just throw in the components needed. And then pipeline engineering needs, again, a little bit more heavy modular frames, which this factory should be able to make, so this shouldn't be too bad either. Now, deciding where the foundations are going to go for this factory or these sub-factories, potentially, because they are a little far apart. I don't want to just build a giant concrete box around all of this. Although, trust me, I was tempted. In initial planning for this video, I was thinking of using all 6 nodes to build a giant iron factory and pipe in water using the pure ingot recipe, but I've decided we're getting a little ahead of ourselves there. I've learned my lesson from the Caterium factory, the copper Caterium factory. Not that I'm going to shy away from big factories, just that I'm going to shy away from them doing them sooner than we should. I don't even have a hover pack yet. So building something really big would be kind of a pain in the A. Alright. So, in deciding where the foundations are going to go, I've worked out that basically one foundation higher than this is going to be enough to clear every dune in the desert. Just barely. Even one foundation lower doesn't. And I worked that out when I was building those road blueprints I showed earlier, and I was testing out where could a road network go in the desert, how wide should the roads be, and things like that. And I realized that, like, yeah, this height is actually needed to get over some dunes that are over in the distance there. So this is kind of the height that I would reckon that we need for trains and for a lot of the roads. Therefore, it should be kind of the base layer or entry layer for roads for factories. Now, the factories can build underneath that, down to the ground, but this should be where the trucks come in, this layer. So that's kind of what I'm going to use as a reference point. So I'm just going to build this out a little bit further to just the edge here. I haven't thought about where the actual road or whatever is going to start. I just know that this is going to be the height that we're generally going to go with. The reason I built that out is because I was thinking we could start building the road now, but I guess we don't need to. Instead, I'll just connect these out in a big solid line, and let's get something a bit cheaper than grip metal. Just use concrete. I'm going to bring this all the way out to the different prospecting nodes that I know I'm going to cover. So I'm just going to basically build solid little lines that go out to each one. Alright, so the 4 prospecting nodes that we're going to utilize, 1, 2, 3, and 4, all have this little concrete line just connecting them. Now, we'll remove this. This is just a visual indicator for me of where things are going to go. So this is the line that we've got here on the map now. So good that we can see this. So basically now we can kind of decide that we could fill in the gap in the middle with the actual factory. So starting from, yeah, I guess somewhere on the inside here, I'll use a 2-meter foundation and we'll just block this out as our initial floor. And then these things are going to be little hubs with a bunch of smelters in each of them, smelting all 480, because all we can do right now is use a Mark IV belt, right? So Mark IV belt is 480 per minute. I'm going to put a Mark II miner on these pure nodes. We'll get 480 out. So if we look at a smelter, just a regular smelter, it takes 30 in per minute. So divided by 30, each one of these could have 16 smelters. Now we could do it 2 ways. We could have a little bridge piping in iron ore into a bigger factory, or we could do the smelting in little remote places and pipe in the ingots. Either way, the number's the same. I kind of like the idea of doing that. It's different than what I would normally do. Normally I bring into everything into a centralized place. Ultimately, we're still doing that, but I kind of like the idea of keeping the smelters out where the miners are. Just this time around. Alright, so this is what we've got left now. So basically a big concrete floor in the desert now connected to their little subunits. That's what we're going to refer to these as. Little subunits that make 480 ingots per minute each. And I've disconnected the old kind of scaffolding, as I call it, right? This little concrete thing is just kind of temporary for us to kind of visualize where things are going to be moving from to get into the main floor. So we could move the main floor further out to the right, we can move it further out to the left. It might just naturally grow that way. I don't know how big it's going to need to be. But instead, what we're going to do, instead of continuing the foundations blindly, I'm going to start building out the subunits. So we'll start with this one and get a general idea of how wide this needs to be. We can have a look at our blueprints. So the blueprints inside the machines category, we're going to be using smelters, right? Just basic smelters. And by the way, if you see this graphical artifacting I'm getting on the menu, it's really hard to see. I updated my drivers recently, and that's just happening in this game. Just some PC gaming stuff for you. Just random ass problems. Anyway, it doesn't really I don't mind, but people have pointed it out to me on one of my streams, so I just thought I would mention it. It's not to do with mods. Anyways, right, so I think what we're going to be doing, yeah, is probably from this direction. If we take this miner's direction, it's want to send stuff into this factory out the left, but it's going to receive stuff in from the right. So again, using our dynamic blueprints here, we can say a smelter that takes stuff in from the right, but out to the left will be like this. And just to use an example of how big this is going to be, we'll just line this up with the center of a foundation. That's the idea with these. They're all supposed to line up with the center, so we can see the beam lines up on the edge here. So totally good. Now, we worked out earlier that 480 divided by 30 means we need 16 smelters. And I want to stack these up high. Now, in 1.1, this won't be a problem. We'll just split as we go, up high, straight up, which is no problem. But we can't really do that in this update without it being a bit weird. So I'd rather just use the 3 outputs of a splitter. So to use the 3 outputs of a splitter means we only want to go up 3 levels high, ideally. So to do that, I would probably go with 6, 12, 18 machines. Now, we've got a blueprint for 5, and we have a blueprint for 1. We don't have a blueprint for 4 or anything like that. 4, 8, 12, 16, you know, you could have stacked it 4 times in 1.1, maybe that would have worked. But instead, we'll use the 5, input right, output left, and then we'll circle around until we find it for just the regular. Input right, output left. Bring this down, rotate it around till it's correct. And then we just have to line up the beams more than anything, but we can also look at the ground and everything else. Now, why am I doing it here? This is just to get an idea of how big this is going to be. So it's going to be 6 foundations across, because each one sits on 1. And it's 4 foundations deep. So I would say 7 foundations, maybe even 8, would clear us completely to create a nice little sub-unit. And then we'll just build up high. So that's 8 by 4 then. So if we're starting here, we want to use this. So let's go just to here for a sec. It's going to receive in something here. So I said 8 by 4, so it's 1, 2, and then a further 6. And you know what? I don't want it to be that close to the factory. Let's bring it a bit further back. So we'll go further out back this way. In future, we'll be able to remove those hard drive sites as well, which is kind of neat. If we ever decide that we want to build over it, for instance. Alright, cool. So just get rid of this now. That's not needed, right? The prospecting pole can go. And we can basically say, with a miner Mark II or whatever, we'll face it out this way. And, you know, somewhere here is going to be the input for this thing. So it's going to come across and come in here. And we'll make that look a bit better later as well. But this is our sort of little subunit floor. In fact, I would say go a little further out. I just think it looks better to distance ourselves from the factory if we're going to try and make it a subunit. The other ones will be further out naturally. This one's pretty close by. That one's actually really close as well. Alright, so let's try the build process here. I'll try to do one on screen quickly, and then I'll just do the other 3 myself. So input right, output left, right? So input right, output left. I'm going to make a little hotbar for this, just to make it go quicker. So this is input right, output left, and then input right, output left. But then we're also going to use a universal cosmetic for the floor, which is going to do the same thing. And we won't need anything else for now, but if I do, I'll try to remember it. Alright, so we just rotate this around, nudge it into place, and we're going to start with a 2 foundation clearance to allow for our merging and splitting that's going to happen. This will give us enough space on the end. Yep. And just to make sure that we're all lined up. Cool. Right, next one. We could just use blueprint mode now, and then just nudge it over. I don't know why the beam doesn't really count in terms of the overall, what's it called, boundaries of the blueprint, but it doesn't, so we have to nudge that over. No big deal. Then, like I said, I'm going to use this cosmetic called Reinforced Catwalk 5x4. So it matches all these modular blueprints, right? It's going to match the constructors, it'll match the assemblers, so we should be all good. We'll just nudge that across by 1 because it wasn't lining up with the beam. This should be lined up though. Yep, just satisfactory things. Then we go with number 4, or my hotkey number 4. And we can just line that up here. Bonk. Cool. Now we've got our first stacked layer. Perfect. Right, we'll do it again. This time we turn off blueprint mode, otherwise it kind of layers itself on top of the foundations by like a few inches. It doesn't quite line up the way I'd want. So we'll just go about there, and we'll just nudge this into position. Alright, cool. I'm aware of the mod infinite nudge and stuff like that. I don't want to use that to me for this particular playthrough. Like, that's just a bit too much. Right now I'm just using those like very small quality of life mods that really just save a little bit of time rather than do things that you can't currently do. Right. Although in my streams I've been using it for fun. Right, so there we go. That's that one. And this one. Cool. Now these don't have any recipes set. If I was a little smarter, maybe I would have went over there. We know we're all building iron. I could have just configured it to have the right recipe before I start placing them. Maybe I'll do that and then save it out blank again in future, but I've kind of determined that it's quicker to set the recipe than it is to reset the direction of all these different things and have different blueprints for every different recipe you start working with. And that seems to be working well so far. Next thing, next floor. Let's go again. So again, this needs to be nudged. The other position was correct. Just do this. That's correct. Do this. As you can see, that's not correct. With vertical nudging, we could just go boop boop, but we can't, unfortunately. So turning off blueprint mode will solve that for us. Looking at one of the foundations here. I made it intentionally difficult by having like steel frame foundations in the middle. I just thought it would look nice to break it up a bit, not have catwalk literally everywhere where you can't even walk. Instead, just supports kind of makes sense underneath the machines, I think. But it's all aesthetics. Right, that one's good to go. And then this one. We'll just look at this machine and we'll go across 2. And just like that, we excuse me, we have our 6, 12, 18 machines. So how do we get the right number out of this? So we know that it's 480 divided by 30. It's going to be 16 machines is what we need, but we have 18. So 16 out of 18. No, so, oh, whoops, wrong way. 16 out of 18 is 0.88889, so 8 recurring basically. So if we just pop this in brackets, times it by 100, then that we can now place inside of a machine as the clock speed, and that will get everything to work receiving 480 per minute as a unit, if you know what I mean. So we'll just get rid of this, connect that in there. So it's 26.67. Copy that. I would just paste this now on each machine. And again, could do this in the blueprint to save us time with the other subunits, which I'll probably do, because there's going to be 4 of these in total. But you get the idea. Then ultimately, we just connect these all together, right? Connect that. And we just connect these with cable. Now, the next thing would be doing the splittering. We'll just line that up with the center of a foundation, because I'm OCD, I guess. I want it to all line up neatly. So we'll place that in here. And the idea with this now would be that we go up to about this point to there. And this side can go up to this point. And then we just connect it in with the straight belt, connect that in with a straight belt, and that one. And now all we have to worry about is connecting this across, right, from this machine. So 480. So this would be a 480 belt, so a Mark IV. And these would just be Mark III. And same with these. So it's a Mark III belt then, hopefully the whole way down. And that should work just fine. Now, as you can see, we're spilling out over the edge here, which can't handle that. So, yep, just probably extend this a little bit further. Vertical nudging, again, would solve that problem. Or not vertical nudging, sorry, the vertical splitting. So just having a splitter here, and then splitting straight out on top. Oh my god, I can't wait. It's going to be so good. We'll manifold vertically. But yeah, this will work just fine for now. We could have nudged everything a little bit further forward, but that wouldn't then work for the railing and things like that. It'd be all messed up. So I'm happy enough the way it is. Alright, so the same thing has to happen for merging. However, I would say that this is the floor where the roads are supposed to go. So to guarantee that we go over any trucks and things like that, we should merge from up here. So we'll line this up again in this direction and just bring this all the way up to about there. Get rid of this now, that was just an anchor. And very similarly, grab this, come down to this point. There's a Mark III. Nice and straight because we're all lined up. Yep, and then this goes up to the very top. Mark III out of its mind, and that's out of its mind as well. Now, we'll just grab our Mark IV, and this will go into the building along a little track that I'm going to show you guys. The idea, actually, I could just do it really quickly and show you what I have in mind for it. If we go to about here. This seems like the floor that we're going to be using to go in. So just temporarily, I'll just build this floor. This will be removed in a minute. But let's say that the factory wall, right, starts here. The wall hole that we're going to be sending stuff into. I've got a blueprint in the Universal Cosmetics called Small Frame Belt Track Raised. It's slightly raised off the ground. Did that by getting a, a painted beam and sitting this on top of it. It's actually quite a long thing thinking about it. Well, actually, I'm jumping the gun. Let's build our belt first. Just connect that in there. Let's get that blueprint now. Place it somewhere, wherever. It doesn't really matter here. I've gone too far, or not far enough. There we go. And now, if I wanted to line it up with the foundation, that might be a bit smarter. And then we can get rid of this. And in theory, this walkway wouldn't even exist either. That was just to show us where things are moving from. And now we've got a sort of steel frame pillar that will look like it's suspending the belt as it goes over. And if we really wanted to, you could even like bring this down. There, that's what I was trying to do. Right, if we start from there, you can bring this down instead. Kind of looks cool actually doing it that way. Cut that. And now we can have our pillar at the bottom. Whoops. Get rid of that. And there you go. How cool is that? It's okay. It works. Now, this is such a short distance, I don't know if we really need that. And this, imagine, you know, there's going to be a wall here, and then each of these are doing the same thing. So some of the distances could be quite long for this. This one's quite a short one, so I don't think we need such a big pillar. But I just like that the belt is like contained in this, and I didn't come up with this. I've seen, I can't remember where I saw it, but probably just somewhere on a Satisfactory Reddit, like someone did a design like this, and it's common enough. But I just want to mention, I didn't come up with it. But it's common enough to have big pillars that do this kind of thing or run these parallel to each other just to give your belt infrastructure some sort of support as you build it along over like long distances to make it look a little bit better. And the reason that the blueprint is raised is so that it kind of tucks into the belt nicely and allows for things that are flowing on the belt do not clip through this. So that's a minor thing. It does mean that it looks like it's slightly off-centered or whatever, but it just looks better for the things moving on the belt. Otherwise, for instance, like stacks of concrete and stuff just clip through this as they're moving through, and I don't like that. So I haven't necessarily seen anyone else raise theirs. That's a Darren original, but the idea of doing this overall is it's quite well known in the community. So that's one subunit, and of course we put walls and windows and stuff on this and make it look like a little standalone building. Put a big number on the outside of it, maybe like SU01. To look kind of cool, and that's subunit 1 before we have subunit 2, 3, and 4, and who knows, maybe the factory will grow and we'll get some more to go into it. I like to think in the future we'll use better recipes, like the pure ingot recipe, which I do have access to in the hard drives right now, but that's going to require bringing in a lot of water, so mixing water with iron ore to get like a higher volume of iron ingots out. It needs refineries though, it needs a lot of higher power draw also. I just felt like we shouldn't tackle that yet, but in the future it does seem inevitable that that's what we'll probably do, and either deliver ore by train or just use all of the ore that's here. Because the desert certainly has a lot of it. If not for the iron, we could always do it for other things like quartz and things that aren't really readily available in the desert. Right, so I'm going to build the other ones in a similar fashion, and then we'll start figuring out where the layout of the full foundations are going to go. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, subunit number 3 is now complete, and of course, as is subunit number 4, and I'm currently standing on a work-in-progress layout for the factory floor, for the actual main facility. We'll talk about this in the next episode, as I'm going to be discussing how I lay out factories. A lot of people often ask me, how do you get the layouts figured out before you build? A lot of it's trial and error, and then also, and some editing, some classy editing, of course, in videos, but also just if I'm planning something big and I want to save myself the time and effort of putting on machines and hooking them up and then realizing they're in the wrong place, that's all patterns are for in some regards. So color some foundations, we use some patterns to discuss where things are going to go, their inputs and outputs are sort of set, and we can line things up accordingly then, the amount of machines, all that sort of stuff. But I'll actually go into more detail in the next episode when we're actually building the main facility. For now, we're just going to finish up this final subunit. This is actually number 1, and I thought I could just kind of quickly go in there and show you how it was built, because no doubt people might be wondering what went on inside of each of these. They're all the same, by the way, except for, let me just hop out of this one, except for that one. This is a 6 by 10, so 6 foundations across, 10 wide. All of the others are 5 by 10. That was just because of the way the miner was placed. It was kind of creeping over like a half foundation, so I just ended up widening it out. It's hard to say that. I probably could do something similar for this one, because this is like right against the edge, and I couldn't put in a concrete foundation, or could do a concrete wall, but I've decided just to leave it as a hex window, I guess, to kind of see in. None of the others have that. They're just kind of uniform blocks. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. But basically, they each have their own little characteristics, I guess. But I thought we'd just finish this one off. Obviously, I painted it, and then we could talk about the wall styling choices, and I've got some new blueprints as well. Right, so these are just the standard machines as they were placed as blueprints. Now they're painted. I extended a beam all the way down, and then I've cut some of the catwalks so that they're ready for us to add in some stairways. So working from the top down is typically a bit better. So we'll just build 2 of these out, 2 out here, and then grab ourselves, let's see, if I grab this and then go with a ramp, nope, staircase. We'll just go down 3, which will get us to the next floor. Same thing again, really, just come across here, come across there, and then we just go down again. Super simple, already painted, thanks to that mod, which is awesome. Alright, so now we've got a nice and easy way to get up and down each one, to get to each layer, should we ever wish to kind of just quickly move around it. On the roof, I've cut the roof in the middle just to have the glass sort of see-through walkway thing going straight down the middle. In this one, it has 2 foundations because there is no real true center point to that one unless we used half foundations. Got these concrete pillar things down the edges, or the sides. Not a super fan of those, to be honest. I was trying it out on this one without that. It's just a block on top of a big blocky foundation. It's okay. I mean, these could be cleared underneath. We could do other things in the future. Like there's room down here for stuff depending on what is needed. The plan was to have a road go straight through this area, but we'll see about that. So yeah, still kind of, you know, thinking about finishing touches for that. Now, if we have a look, we just have our modern railing here. We have our stairwell that goes down into a little area just so we can access this, you know, feed it with its power shards or whatever. It comes up, obviously it gets split between the 3 layers. A little extra information I've seen since the earlier part of this video is that the 1.1 splitters, it seems like if you feed them on a lift, they actually lose their left and right outputs. So it's sort of like just turning this on its side, if you know what I mean. I thought maybe we were getting splitters with 5 outputs, but no. It looks like they're, from the video anyway, they're kind of blocked at the sides and dynamically just rotate, I suppose. All right, well, anyway, obviously this is pretty straightforward, all right? They merge here. We, like I said before, we're merging in the middle and then we go out. Now, I've got 2 new blueprints because I was doing one for each sub-factory. Decided to, let's just extend this out temporarily so we've got something to look at. I haven't named these, well, I've named them, sorry, I haven't given them their descriptions and stuff yet, but we're going to go with the subunit wall, right? So it is a series, we'll just plop this down for a second, a series of ramp walls and inverted ramp walls that give us a bit more of a clean look to the wall, slightly, not by much, and it is basically the same as just building the same amount of objects in a line as it would be just building regular walls. But I just didn't want that grid effect constantly all the time. Just try and shake things up, do something a little bit different every now and then. We'll get rid of this. Next one I have is the subunit glass wall. So this is really similar, but it's meant for, it has a metal beam going across it to match the height of the different floors for these machines. So basically just look at the bottom here. We're actually lined up already, so that's that. We'll pop one in. Now for these subunits, I think I went with 6, is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? Yep, 6. So we just get a second one of these. Blueprint mode. If we can just look at the edge, there we go. That just moves along nicely. And then we can actually get that wall. So again, just to be super lazy, I can just look over at this one, probably grab it. Now its facing direction actually does matter. If it's facing me, the blue stripe will be on the left. Which is that what we want? Let's see how I've done it on the other side. Yes, apparently. So let's go with that then. So blue stripe on the left. Place this just somewhere here, not in blueprint mode, I guess. Nudge it along into position. Boom. So we can get rid of this now. So we're almost done. I would say what I did then was I had the metal beam just going around the bottom just to kind of prevent any kind of clipping, give a seam between the window and the foundation below it. So we'll just go across there. It should be 40 across and then 40 across again. All good. Now to create the effect of it kind of having a, like, it's obviously super basic, but just to give some character to it, I made that kind of diagonal line. Of course the windows do kind of clip through a little bit, but it is what it is, it's fine. It's just better than maybe just this. Maybe. It's in the eye of the beholder, really. But if we go get this piece, and we leave kind of one square here and one square here. If we leave 2 squares and then just start from here, we'll just go up 3, up 2, and then just this one is on its own. And we just fill those gaps. That's really that. I suppose, actually, normally what I do before I fill the gaps is I remove the window. So just cut those windows out of here so they don't clip through, just on these sections, obviously. Right, just place these back in. They place best when you look at the edge of one, not the diagonal line of one. Alright, cool. So now this bar is coming too far over, so we'll just cut that, grab it to here, and just bring it to the starting point of the wall. This is put on the seam of these foundations. It's kind of hard to see from this distance, but there to there. And I think that's it. So the merger, I just have to be careful now. I think the merger, is it? I have to check. There's no doorway into these, by the way, yet. I have to figure out where we're going to go later. Yeah, so I was just checking. The merger's in line with the blue. So we cut out here and here, just for now, for a second. So what we could do is just grab this and go with the 4 meter. Go with this and go with the 4 meter. So we still don't use a wall. We'll use a conveyor hole here. And then this one can just be normal again, and so can this. Then, using that mod again, we can pick the blue color by looking at it and paint it onto that. So, there we go. Nice. Alright, so on this side, it's pretty simple. this has another variant. This is the subunit wall. We want the subunit wall small, and I want the white to be on the corner, so the blue is on the left when this is facing me. That's just something I would have known, I guess. And then the rest can just be windows all the way, so it just goes up to 10. Nice even height of 10. And that's really it. That is our subunit now completed. So, there's no, like I said, doorway yet. I need to figure out if we're going to even give them doorways, or if we want a walkway that goes over into, like, a higher up part. Not exactly sure how I'm going to do it just yet. Oh, I guess the very last thing, then, would be to show doing the sign. So, do a 1 meter foundation there, a 1 meter underneath it, get rid of the one on top. That's so that we are now 1 meter lower than the seam of the wall. The reason being, if we place down a billboard, it has this 1 meter little stilt here. So we'll just rotate that around, sink it in. So you can sink it into there. That it would naturally go against the wall if we wanted it to, but I wanted to get it further in than you would normally put it. Okay, all right, holding control and then pressing the arrow forward, we get rid of the seam, and we're really on the wall now. We'll click that into position. Put another one on top. Remember, you need crystal oscillators for these, and I've just been making them manually. We don't have a factory for that just yet. Getting rid of the one in the bottom to get rid of the seam, and then I'm getting rid of the one on the top, which is really just for placement. Then we can just paste in our thing. This is SU2, so this is going to be SU1. So this is called subunit 1. It could be iron unit 1, IU1 or something. It doesn't really matter. And that's it. Subunit 1 is now back looking nice and clean. So yep, we'll talk about yeah, we'll do everything else in the next video now, I think. So the foundations are still not set. The smelting is done. I've marked it off on the right-hand side. So these buildings will all do the smelting. They're all doing the same thing, 480 per minute. We'll pick it up in the next episode and then decide how we feed into our different groups of machines. We've got iron rods, screws, I believe modular frames, steel pipe, iron plates, reinforced iron plates. Then we have a tractor for bringing in more steel pipe. And then we're going to be building a manufacturing area and an assembly area for encased industrial beams. We need to bring in limestone and make some concrete. And then also heavy modular frames as the manufacturing area. So that'll be that, plus the roads shipping this stuff out of here. So I realized that there isn't quite as much space on the left as I wanted, and the way I've laid it out, it could just be better. So yeah, without being long-winded, we'll address all of that in the next one. But I just thought we'd touch on showing how those were actually put together. So that's going to have to be it for this episode. I'll be back in the next one soon enough, because the factory is largely now planned. It's just a matter of getting a little bit of a layout decided, but it's ultimately going to be basically there somewhere. It shouldn't go up too much higher than these sub-buildings themselves. Maybe just by one foundation or one wall, or even one wall smaller, depending on how we want to do it. And that'll be it. Alright, so thank you very much for watching. Apologies for being delayed. I've just been sick. It's super frustrating, but it's mostly gone now, thankfully. Just a little nasally. So we'll see how we get on. Alright, that's going to have to be it for me. Thank you very much for watching. Remember, the blueprints and all of that stuff are in the description. whatdarrenplays.com/satisfactory. If you liked the video, please do consider giving it a like. Please do consider subscribing. Also, if you want to be even more than that, you can become a channel member to show your support, and also leave a super thanks if you want to just give a one-off on the video. It really does help. So thank you to all the people who've done that before. Alright, that's going to be it. Thank you. Goodbye.